everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a get ready with me using new makeup. I've been collecting some new or new to me products, either products I've been gifted or that have been sent to me by friends, or products that I've purchased myself. I've got almost a full face here, not quite a full face, but lots and lots of new stuff that I thought that we could try together. So if that sounds interesting to you, just keep watching. All I have on my face currently is my skincare because I do have a foundation that I want to try today. I was sent the Viral Tear Cushion Foundation. I feel like I've seen this everywhere and I've seen lots of good things about it, but I've also seen some people who haven't loved it. And a lot of those people have been people who have drier skin, which I definitely do. So I'm interested to see how this works on me. I got the shade 21C Cool Ivory. I'm sure you've seen this 1,000 times, but it comes with its own little sponge, and then you have to peel open the packaging, so that's nice and sanitary and also keeps everything clean. Oh wow, there's a lot of product that came up on the foil when I just peeled that off. But that's okay. The shade actually looks like it's gonna be a pretty close match, so I am just gonna try this with the little sponge applicator that it came with. Okay, I feel like that shade match is actually pretty good. Even though it says it's cool, it's definitely coming up a little bit golden on me, but it's nothing that's like so totally off that I wouldn't be able to use it. Oh wow. Wow, okay, that is fuller coverage than I was expecting. I just saw myself in the viewfinder, like, wow, that is really covering everything, isn't it? So I'll do kind of like one half of my face and leave the other half bare so you can see the difference. It's a really thin consistency, so I wasn't expecting it to have this amount of coverage that it does. So you can see one side of my face. The shade looks a little off, but not terrible, versus the other side of my face. So that really is bringing the coverage. So far, I do notice it's clinging onto a little dry patch that I have here, but maybe I can kind of go back over that and blend it out a bit. Let me get the rest of my face done and then we can see how it's sitting on my skin. It's definitely a product that I feel like I want to press into the skin rather than drag, because I feel like when I drag, it almost like pulls up the texture underneath. Wow, I feel like I'm looking really scary in the viewfinder. Like this shade just looks way too light, but when I look at myself in the mirror, it's not that bad. Oh boy. Okay, so first impressions right off the bat. I do see a couple areas like around my nose where it's like the foundation just doesn't want to sit there. So I'm finding it a little bit difficult to get an even layer because it's like it doesn't want to adhere to any of my dry patches or texture. Like over here, it's kind of the same issue. My initial thought was maybe I could go over it with a brush to kind of smooth out those lines. But judging by what happens when I try to blend this in, I'm feeling like that's just going to pick the product up and create even more streaks. So I'm actually just going to take my fingertips to kind of further push it in. Just kind of hope that it better adheres to my skin, especially because that's their whole claim. Like it's the mask fit red cushion specifically for wearing under a mask. It says, adhering cushion foundation keeps makeup fresh for long hours with lightweight powder and skincare substance. Prevents smudging of makeup in the mask. It looks like they did a clinical trial for 72 hours as well as 24 hours, but they only did the 72 hours test for one shade in particular, which is not the shade that I have. But I'm going to be interested to see how this is looking on my skin by the end of the video. I do think it's pretty overall. Like, if I didn't have dry patches and texture, I think I would really like the look of it because it's so thin, but it does really have the coverage. But I always like to give my base product a chance to like warm up to my skin and settle in before I really give my first impression. I don't have anything new for concealer, so I'm just going in with my e.l.f. Camo Concealer. Okay, I don't have anything new to try for bronzer or brows, so I just went in with my Milani Liquid Contour in the shade Honey Miel. And then for brows, I filled in with the e.l.f. Instant Lift Waterproof Brow Pencil in the shade Neutral Brown, which I can't stop using. I'm almost actually finished with it. And then I set my brows with the Rare Beauty Brow Gel. But I am very excited because I do have a new blush to try. If you missed it, over on my Instagram, my friend Kristen and I did a little product swap, and she sent me a big box of goodies, one of which was the Lawless Pinch My Cheeks Soft Blur Cream Blush in the shade Gumdrop. I've never tried anything from Lawless before, but this looks like just the most beautiful, bright pink shade. Just so, so pretty. I think that bubblegum pink is so cute. So I'm really excited to try this. It feels like it's a very lightweight, kind of thin formula. I think I'm going to use a brush. So I'm going to go in with the Real Techniques 206 brush. It's just a little kind of fluffy one, and just kind of stippling that on. It's definitely like thin and pretty sheer. I feel like that's almost even coming up a little bit more pigmented in the viewfinder than it is in person. So I'm just building up another layer because if you all haven't noticed, I like a lot of blush. Some say too much blush, but I say no such thing. And the other side. I feel like this is actually really wearable. Like some bubblegum pink blushes look very artificial on the skin, and I feel like because this one maybe is a bit more sheer and not as pigmented, it doesn't have that like chalky white base that a lot of the lighter toned cool pink blushes have. I'm not sure how well that's picking up on the camera, but in person it looks very subtle and very natural as well. Like I do have cool pink undertones to my skin, so I don't know if it's just picking up on that and making it look like I'm like naturally kind of flushed, but I really like the way that it's sitting on top of the skin as well. It doesn't look like another layer of makeup. It just looks so natural and skin-like. For highlighter, I was recently sent the new Cheeky Rose liquid highlighters from Winky Lux. And I have spoken about their Cheeky Rose liquid blush before. I really enjoy that product. I'm not the biggest fan of liquid blushes, but I did still enjoy that product. But I really do like liquid highlighters, again, for when you want to have a glow to your skin, but you want it to look like skin and just be very natural and seamless. So there are 3 shades. Moonlight, which is sort of like a champagne-y kind of classic highlighter color. Angel, which is still sort of champagne-y but leaning more into the pink tones. And then Nova, which is slightly deeper, probably too deep for my skin to be a highlight, but it could work potentially as like a blush topper. I'll just give these a little swatch for you. I forgot with these, you really want to shake them up because otherwise the pigment doesn't mix quite right. So I just had to take that off of my hand and start over. All right, so we've got Nova on the top, Angel in the middle, and then Moonlight on the bottom. For me today, to keep with the pinky tones of the blush, I'm gonna use Angel. And I have worked with these a little bit. It's quite a thin formula, like you might have noticed in the swatch. They're almost like watery, like a watercolor kind of effect. So I just go in right with the little applicator and then blend with my finger. And because they are such a thin formula, you hardly have to blend at all. Like they just seamlessly kind of mesh with the skin. Pretty unique formula, honestly. I feel like a lot of liquid highlighters are that thicker consistency. Hopefully you can pick up the kind of subtle glow that that gives. It's so, so pretty and very subtle and wearable for every day. Don't sleep on Winky Lux. I feel like I don't always see them hyped up or like super viral or anything with their products, but I've been really impressed by the products that I've tried from them. And I think they're also pretty readily available. Like you can get them at Target. So this is your reminder to check out Winky Lux if you haven't already. For powder, I have been using this, but it is still pretty new to my collection. This is the Sydney Grace loose setting powder, and this was sent to me by my friend Kaylin, who actually has a YouTube channel, which I will link in the description box. I'm just gonna put this through my T-zone and across my eyelids, which I did prime with the Ulta Beauty Matte Eyeshadow Primer. But I really like this powder. I think it's like a little bit goes quite a long way, so you don't need a ton, but it blurs fairly well. It takes away shine, and I do think it does a good job at setting my makeup. I'm gonna put that over top of my eye primer as well to give us a nice smooth canvas to blend eyeshadow on. I'm gonna zoom you in for this next part because I'm very excited about our eyeshadow for the day. I picked up the Urban Decay Naked Palette re-release. Definitely a nostalgia thing, so they got me there, but this was the first palette that I had in my collection, loved, used and abused, had pans in. Like for a long time, this was really the only palette that I used consistently. And I decluttered it a couple years ago because it was so old and crusty and falling apart, but I'm really, really happy to have it back in my life. I did get it when it was on sale at Ulta, and I did use a gift card to get it because I think they're pricing it at like $59 or something like that, which is insane in my opinion. That's very steep for this palette, but I think they knew that people would buy it. They knew that there would be suckers like me who would be sucked in by the nostalgia. So I'm gonna do one of my classic looks that I used to do with this palette. I wore it all the time when I was going out in college, and it felt like a very glam eyeshadow look for me at the time because I just didn't really wear all that much eyeshadow day to day. So I'm gonna take the brush that it comes with, which by the way, I love that they're still doing that. I still have, you've probably seen me use the brushes from my Urban Decay palettes, and I use them all the time. I like that they're double-sided. So I'm just taking the shade Virgin, which I used to use as a lid setting shade. Even back in the day, I always set my lids with a kind of bone-colored shadow. And this one has shimmer in it, which, you know, these days I probably wouldn't set my entire lid with an eyeshadow that has shimmer in it, but at the time that did not bother me, and this is what I always did when using this palette. So in honor of past me, we're setting my lid with this shade today. I totally respect my friend Kaylin and also my friend Joe, who also has a YouTube channel that I can link, who both were like not interested in buying this at all. Like I think Joe in particular tried to talk me out of it. Like, think of how many neutral eyeshadows you have. And yes, very true. If you're like me, you probably don't need this palette because yeah, there are way better eyeshadow formulas now, and we all have neutral eyeshadow palettes these days. But for me, it's just, I think it's just the nostalgia. The nostalgia just got me on this one. Okay, now taking the shade Buck, which I do think they changed slightly. It feels to me a little bit darker than the original palette. And the shade Naked also seems darker to me. I never used the shade Naked in my old Naked palette, which is so weird because looking at the shade in this palette, it looks like the perfect transition shade, right? But I just remember that shade being really light and just like practically non-existent on my eyes. And I remember Buck being a lot warmer and a lot more of like a transition shade for me. So I'm staying true to what I would have done back in the day, but I do think these days and with my current makeup preferences, I would probably go in with Naked first and then deepen with Buck because you can just see how dark and almost cool toned it is. And I do not remember it being cool toned at all. The cool tones were in the Naked 2 and the Naked 3 palette, okay? Actually, do I still have the brush? I do, you guys. I still have the exact brush that I used to use for this step. It is so old. It's from e.l.f. and it's their defining eye brush, which they don't even make anymore. But e.l.f. brushes, I'm telling you, man, they used to be, I don't know what they're like as much now, but they used to be really good quality. So I have had this for like over 10 years, well over 10 years, and it's still holding up. And this is the exact brush that I always used to use for this step. I used to take the shade Hustle on the outer corner and kind of blending it up into my crease as well. At the time, this felt like a ton of makeup for me. It felt like I was really going all out. I was using color, and it just felt like a very glam moment for me. These days, maybe not so much. It feels very neutral and very quote-unquote wearable, but back then I really felt like I was doing something. And then I would always take that same shade up underneath my lower lash line. I still do this. I wouldn't take it all the way across, kind of just go halfway. And then for the lid, my favorite shade in the entire palette was this shade here called Toasted. And back in the day, this to me felt like a pink. It felt like a rose gold. Looking at it today, it does have a bit of like that pinkiness to it, but it's more of just like a taupey bronze. I don't know why this felt like such a thing when I would wear it back in the day, but it really did. It felt like I was really going wild. So I would just put that all over the lid. I do think some of the shades in this palette are slightly different than they were. Like, this look is feeling very cool tone to me, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because I actually really like cool tones now and I didn't like them back then. But I do remember my looks with this palette being majority warm, and that's kind of different from how it's feeling now. And it's also striking me that these shades are not nearly as sparkly and metallic as I remember them being. I mean, you definitely do have the more sparkly shades in the palette, like Sidecar in particular is way, way sparklier. But I remember feeling like I was wearing glitter on my eyes back in the day. It's just so funny how our makeup styles and preferences change as we grow up and get more comfortable with makeup. Back in the day, I would not have left this look alone without putting some eyeliner on. In the box that Kristen sent me, she did include an eyeliner. This is the Trinny London Line to Define eyeliner in the shade Chantel Bronze Shimmer. And I have never tried anything from Trinny London, but this does look like such a pretty shade. Let me get a swatch for you. It looks like a warm, almost plummy bronze, which actually I think is going to go really well with this look. So I am going to put this on the outer corner of my eye and just winging out slightly. And then I'm going to put it underneath my lower lashes. And maybe a little bit in the waterline as well, just on that outer portion. That's really pretty. It actually added some nice warmth back into the look because it has almost like a red burgundy-ish undertone to it. Very nice. Okay, for mascara, I do have a new mascara to try. I'm gonna try the KVD Full Sleeve Long and Defined Tubing Mascara. I've actually heard really good things about this. It's a really pretty bottle. It has like, I guess like a tattoo look to it, but it's really cool. This one is an interesting wand. It's very interesting how it bows out at the end. I feel like I would do the opposite if I was designing a mascara wand, because end is where it's typically gonna hit your skin and leave mascara where you don't want it. But let's give this a try. If you are new to my channel, you might not know that I typically do wear tubing mascaras because I have a lot of issues with non-tubing mascaras. Oops, of course. Non-tubing and even waterproof mascaras smudging on me. I'm not sure if it's just the way that my lid is shaped or if I just use really moisturizing skincare or what. But I tend to go for a tubing mascara, especially on days where I'm wearing my makeup for a long time, because otherwise I just get smudges. But I also like a lot of volume from my mascaras. I like big, dramatic lashes, and not all tubing mascaras can give that to you. A lot of them do a really good job lengthening and defining, but I am not always the biggest fan of that look. I like my lashes to be really big and fluffy, and so far, I feel like I'm getting a pretty good amount of volume. Sometimes I find tubing mascaras to be really hard to build up as well because that tubing technology really wants to grab onto your lashes and hold on, and then there's nothing to build on top of, if you know what I mean. It's like each singular lash is already coated, and once it's coated, that's kind of it. I feel like these lashes are looking better than these lashes, but maybe I just curled this side better. And there's always a point of no return with tubing mascaras where you try to build it too much and then they all kind of clump together and then you only have 4 lashes. So I have to try to stop myself before I get to that point. But decent volume, I would say. I do feel like I'm getting some spikiness where lashes are starting to clump together. I'm not sure this is the best wand for really getting in and separating those lashes out. But it's not terrible so far. It's definitely not the worst tubing mascara I've ever used. It is kind of funny though that I thought the end of the mascara wand was going to be the issue, and then it ended up being the side of the wand that I marked myself with. Let's put a little bit on the lower lashes as well. I did get a little bit of mascara on my brow bone, but I will let that dry and then it'll just flake off really easily. So far, I think it's okay. It's not my favorite tubing mascara that I've tried. It may improve as it dries out a bit, so I will try and keep you updated on this, but my lashes are looking decently volumized. I do just feel like there is that danger of, as I build up the mascara, getting lashes clumping together and getting some spikiness. But mascaras for me always improve as they dry out, so I will keep you updated on this. While I leave that to dry, I'm actually going to go in and add a little bit of the shade Sidecar to my lid. I'm just feeling like this eye look is not giving as much as I want from it. Yeah, I just feel like it's very, very subtle and very natural, and that's not what I remembered getting out of that look in this palette. So I just kind of want to add a little bit of extra shimmer to see if I can get a little more impact. Oh yeah. That shade Sidecar is so pretty. It's very sparkly, and that just added so much to the look to have that extra sparkle there. I'm a little bit disappointed that Toasted is not quite how I remembered it. I remembered it being a lot prettier than how I feel like it's currently looking on my lids. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just a lot more subtle than I wanted it to be or remembered it being. And I don't think all of that is down to my makeup preferences changing. I do think there has been a good amount of change to the formula and the shades in the palette as well, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it's not a bad thing by any means. It's just different from how I remembered it. Okay, for lips, we have a few options here, all of which I think were sent by Kristen in the box that she sent to me, so thank you, Kristen, for that. We have the Dasique Cream de Rose tint in the shade number 12 Cocoa Camel. Kind of like a warm caramelly brown shade. It's really, really pretty. We have the L'Oreal, what is this called? L'Oreal Color Riche in the shade 123 Les Nude Independant. A little bit more of a mauvey, pinky, kind of berry sort of vibe. And then we have a Lime Creme Velveteen, which was a huge throwback when I pulled this out of the package. Liquid matte lipstick in the shade Teddy Bear, which looks like a really nice purpley mauve. So we have the Dasique Cream de Rose tint in Cocoa Camel, the L'Oreal Les Nude Independant, and then the Lime Creme Velveteen in Teddy Bear. I feel like because the cheeks are so pink, I'm gonna go for the L'Oreal and just do like more of a rosy tone look. So let me see what lip liner I should use. Okay, I'm gonna line with the Catrice Plumping Lip Liner in the shade License to Kiss 050. It's almost the exact same shade as that lipstick, but just a little bit cooler. Nice rosy tone. I'm gonna go right in with the L'Oreal Color Riche in Les Nude Independant. Oh yeah. That is a super nice, very pigmented, very matte formula. I barely even have to touch it to my lips. And it just swipes right on. I almost don't even need a lip liner because you can kind of use the edge. So that is pretty much the look complete. I'm just taking my hair down so that we don't have to stare at my hair clips anymore. Let me take a good close-up look at my face and give you my thoughts on everything we used today. Okay, so first, the Tear Tear foundation. I mean, I think my skin looks okay. I don't think it looks amazing. It doesn't look particularly smooth. I do feel like this foundation has issues with texture. I'm still seeing that up under my eyes here and around my nose. Maybe if you have an oilier complexion, you wouldn't have that issue, but I am never not gonna have texture. I have dry skin. It just is what it is. So I'm not sure I would recommend this if you, like me, tend to run pretty dry or if you have any kind of texture to your skin at all. My other issue is that I felt like this was a little bit finicky when it came to application. Like I had to spend more time than I wanted to with it, just getting it even and making sure I got the lines out and just, yeah, getting an even layer over all of my skin. So while I don't think it's terrible, I also don't think I would say it's worth the hype or recommend that you run off right away and buy it. The Lawless blush, the soft blur cream blush in Gumdrop, I feel like is really pretty, but I almost feel like it's too sheer. Like I feel like I want to put a little bit more on. But the more I layer it up, the less it wants to sit nicely on the skin. So yeah, I'm not sure. It might be this color being a little bit finicky because it is one of those really light white-based pinks. That's probably too much and now looks a little bit clownish, but I just felt like I needed to see some more of the blush to really get a feel for how it looks on the skin. Like it's almost too sheer and I wish it was a little bit more hydrated. I know it has that blurring quality to it, but I feel like because there's some kind of powder in it or something, it's just not giving my cheeks that juicy look. Like I feel like it's almost settling into my pores or something and not gliding effortlessly over the top of my skin. But this is one that I want to keep playing with because I feel like it might not be playing well with the Tear Tear foundation underneath. Because this was clinging so much to texture, it makes sense that putting this over the top of it, I would have issues with texture and my skin looking textured. So I'm gonna keep playing with this and I will report back on my thoughts on it once I've used it with foundations that I know I love. Same goes for the Winky Lux Cheeky Rose Liquid Highlighter. I have used this with other foundations and I think it looks really pretty. Even now, I think it looks really pretty from afar, but just looking up close at my skin, it doesn't look particularly great. It just is looking very textured and almost a little bit chalky, which I think might be to do with that foundation because things are just not really sitting nicely directly on top of it. But from my experience using this with other foundations, I do like it. I especially like it if you're using a more full coverage foundation and you want to bring back a little bit of the life and dimension and glow to your skin. I think it works especially well for that purpose. But yeah, the Tear Tear foundation is really just messing with the complexion, I think. The Sydney Grace powder, I think, is really good. If you're ordering from the Sydney Grace website and you need a powder, you might as well throw it in because I don't think you're going to be disappointed with it. It's literally just a standard loose powder. It does what it says it's going to do. And that's a good thing, right? We don't want any surprises from our powder necessarily, but I also don't know that this is like special in terms of a powder. That being said, I'm pretty sure this is way cheaper than like the Laura Mercier translucent loose powder. So if you're looking for a more affordable alternative or you wanted to support an indie brand, I don't think you would be disappointed by this powder at all. Speaking of disappointed, I have to say I am a little bit disappointed with the Naked palette just because I feel like there was something different about the shades that I used. So I think if you're buying this palette for nostalgia reasons, the nostalgia is there in the packaging, the aesthetics, the way the palette looks. I don't think the nostalgia will necessarily be there in the shades themselves. It is a completely new formula. We know that from Urban Decay, and the shades are slightly different. So maybe just go into it thinking, it is nostalgic in a way, but it's not the same palette in that you're going to be able to recreate your favorite looks from all those years ago and have them look the exact same. Obviously, I'm going to keep playing with this, and there's definitely nothing wrong with the palette. There's nothing wrong with a neutral, kind of neutral to cool tone version of what I remember the palette to be. But again, if you are looking at this palette thinking, do I need to get this as my go-to neutral palette? No, there's plenty of other neutral palettes that I think are better, more affordable, with better quality, shinier metallics. You know, look at something like ColourPop, look at something like Beauty Bay. Maybe don't go for the Naked palette, but maybe some of you are like me and you were easily swayed by the nostalgia element. So if that's the case, let me know in the comments down below. Did you pick this one up? Have you been using it? What are your thoughts on the reformulated version? I really, really love this Trini London eyeliner. I think it's super pretty. I can't speak to the wear time, obviously, because I've just worn it for the duration of this video, but the shade is really, really pretty and unique, and I'm really happy to have this in my collection. It is a unique shade in that it is that kind of like warmer, plummy, burgundy kind of bronzy brown. I'm just gonna put a little bit more on. The KVD full sleeve tubing mascara, I mean, the jury's still out, obviously. This is just my first impressions. I haven't seen how it washes off, which is a huge component of tubing mascaras. So just based on my very first application, I don't think it's a standout. I think you can get a very similar look for a lot less money with the e.l.f. tubing mascara that they just launched earlier in the year or late last year. I don't think you need to run out and buy the KVD one, but I'm gonna keep using it and hope that as it dries out, it gets a little bit fluffier on the lashes. But for now, it's just a little too spiky for my taste. I'm not getting enough from my lashes, and there are other tubing mascaras that I think do a better job. And then finally for the lips, I feel like this L'Oreal Color Riche in the like slim packaging is a really nice formula. It feels like it's not going anywhere. Like I feel like it is gripped onto my lips, but not in like a liquid lipstick way. Like my lips don't feel completely dry and cracked or anything, but it definitely feels like this is a long wearing lipstick option. The formula feels very elevated. It was super smooth and super pigmented to apply. In hindsight, I don't really know if these two go that well together because this is pulling a little bit warmer and this is pulling way cool. But for the sake of the video, we tried it, and I do think that this is a really nice lipstick formula if you're looking for a good one from the drugstore. So that is everything, my friends. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey of trying some new makeup products in my collection. If you've tried any of the things that I've mentioned, please let us know in the comments your thoughts on them, especially if you've tried them over a longer period of time. I would love to hear from you how they hold up. And if there are any products in particular that you would like me to report back on and give you a little bit more of a long-term review of, definitely let me know that down in the comments as well, and I will make a note to circle back and let you know if my thoughts on these have changed as I continue to use them. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, for watching this video. Give it a like if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe before you leave. I would love to see you in my next video, so I will hope to see you in the next one. Bye!